Good evening. We bring you the latest in the world of sports. I'm Paulo Del Rosario. And we give you the conversations you want to hear from your favorite icons and athletes. I'm Jet Manuel. And in tonight's game plan, we'll break down the wins of the TNT Tropang Giga and the Magnolia Hotshots as they draw first blood in the 2021 PBA Philippine Cup semifinals. We'll discuss the Philippine team's performance as they enter the quarterfinals of the ABC 2021 Asian Women's Volleyball Championship. And we'll talk about the epic battles of Kiefer and THIRDY Ravena in the Japanese B League with a very special guest. Buckle up, sports fans. Let's get in the game. The PBA semifinals is here, so let's take a quick look at the results of each of the game ones of the series. First off, the TNT Tropang Giga squeaked past the San Miguel Beermen by 1 point, and emphasis on the squeak because my goodness, what a game that was. 23 points for RR POGOY as he exploded. CJ Perez matching him with 23. Jason Castro with a vintage performance with 16 points and Junmar Fajardo with 13. Jet, it was a comeback win. Not a comeback, it was hard for them to keep them away. As we take a look at the next one, Magnolia Hotshots Pambansang Manok and the MERALCO Bolts, 88-79 in favor of Magnolia. In SANGALANG leading the way as usual. Paul Lee scoring as usual. And Calvin Abueva doing a lot. Not just scoring, but he's up there as well. Bong Quinto, Anchucara, and BELO leading the way for the MERALCO Bolts. And again, Jet, this one, so many fireworks happening, right?
I love the playoffs right now.
End. Yeah, I mean, like, so much attitude in it in a good way.
I think the matchups are perfect. You have the first one, TNT, and then the next one, Magnolia. It's just perfect matchup.
Absolutely. Now, here to help us further break down the PBA semifinals, we have six-time PBA champion, PBA Rush analyst, and one of the best free throw shooters I know, Ali Peak, the Man Mountain himself. How are you, Ali?
I'm doing good. Good evening, guys.
You know,
good evening.
You know, can I just say, when it's me praising someone for free throws, it matters because of my last name, Del Rosario. Free throws are in our blood. But Ali, first of all, your thoughts on the semifinals matchups. You covered both of them yesterday. Let's start off first with the MERALCO Bolts and the Magnolia Hotshots Pambansang Manok. These two teams, it feels like they were made to match up against each other because of the way that they play. Styles make fights. What do you make of this one?
Well, I think the biggest thing with both of these teams, first of all, you're talking about two of the top 5 defensive teams, in the league throughout the entire conference. And I think we saw that because of the low score by both squads. So defense is going to be very, very good in this matchup. Also, another thing is that you're talking about the #1 rebounding team in Magnolia, and peculiar enough, the number 1 team at second chance points is MERALCO. But Magnolia did an extraordinary job of MERALCO off the boards, controlling MERALCO, and dictating the pace. That's another thing in this matchup between both squads. Magnolia did a pretty good job of dictating the pace, especially down the stretch.
When you talk about Magnolia and the way they pulled away in that fourth quarter, you look at two people, Sangalang and Paul Lee. How did what impact did they have in that fourth quarter that was able to give them that victory?
I think one of the biggest keys with Paul Lee is that he got off to a really good start in the very beginning. There's times throughout the entire conference where, that he would kind of disappear, in the first 2 or 3 quarters, and then reappear and have a really big fourth quarter or a really big second half. I think what was key was he got things started right off the bat, but then so did Ian Sangalang, establishing the inside. He made the adjustments, especially going up against Raymond Almazan, one of the top shot blockers in the league. Even when they were double teaming him down low, he was able to make good decisions out of those traps. And then when they isolated and it was just one-on-one, he took full advantage of that, particularly in the second half, in the fourth quarter.
When the team loses, they have to be the ones to adjust. When you talk about the MERALCO Bolts going into game 2, they're going to probably look at that fourth quarter in particular and how things got out of hand for them. What do you think are the most obvious adjustments they have to make going to the next game?
Well, I think one player in particular needs to really step up and really, make his presence felt in this league, and not the league, but in the series, and that's Raymond Almazan. He didn't play it necessarily a solid game defensively, especially. He kind of struggled throughout the entire game, and he's going to have to really pick things up. But as a whole, dictating the pace. I keep saying that over and over again. Both teams are half-court type teams. You're not going to see these teams get out and run the entire game. And then also another thing I want to mention is that they didn't do a very good job, MERALCO that is, dealing with the pressure, the full-court pressure. There were a few cases where they had a hard time getting the ball across the court, which resulted in, in turnovers, which resulted in points. That was interesting because that happened in the second half. In the first half, it was the other way around. So both teams are really good at pressuring the basketball. Say that both of these teams are really similar in many of their matchups and also their depth, particularly at the guard position. I think what it comes down to is taking care of the basketball, making great decisions, taking advantage of mismatches.
Yeah.
All right. Then who controls the 50-50 balls? Who controls the rebounding? Because Magnolia dominated the rebounding situation. They did not give MERALCO any second or third opportunities at the basket. Now, if you think about what MERALCO was able to do, even in the first round and even in the elimination round, they've been able to get second chance opportunities, offensive rebounds, 50-50 balls over and over again in so many different points.
Yeah, Ali, there's a lot to talk about with regards to that, and of course the battles were very interesting to watch. But then we'll move on to the next series because, again, a lot to talk about there as well, Jet.
Well, you talk about TNT and San Miguel, Ali. Your thoughts on how TNT was able to squeeze by and grab that victory, of course, from San Miguel?
I think the biggest thing was Jumar Fajardo. Now, I will say this. There were certain players, key players that needed to have a better output. I don't know what happened with Alex Kabagna. I expected Coach Leo Austria to plug him in that last second. You don't normally see Marshall Lassiter breaking his man down out there on the wing, especially when the seconds are going down. You normally see him out there in the corner somewhere, out there in the wing, and then it's Alex Kabagna that will break the defense down and kick it out to him, and he knocks down the three-point shot, which would be the game-winning shot.
Yeah.
So that was kind of peculiar to me of why Alex Kabagna wasn't in that type of situation, because we saw him do that against Northport in that first game in the playoffs. But I will say this, a bit of an adjustment that San Miguel's going to have to make defensively. Keep in mind, TNT was able to get past San Miguel without Kelly Williams, who was a huge part at that big man position. And Dave Marcello surprised the heck out of me, I'm going to tell you. I don't know why, but Dave Marcello did a really good job. Actually, I do know why. He's
okay,
I played against him. When we used to play San Beda all the time. I got so sick and tired of it. I'm like, I'm a professional. I got to play against these college kids. But there was one guy that did not back down, and that was Dave Marcello.
Yeah.
And he impressed me out. And another thing is, he's a lot more athletic than what people think. So he's very deceiving from that standpoint. He was blocking Jumar Fajardo's shot. He was blocking Moala Tautua's shot. You don't see that too often. And he was doing a good job of bodying up Jumar Fajardo. And there were some cases where Moala Tautua could not score on him.
Yeah.
So that is really interesting to me. JP Adams offensively did a really good job. He stretched out Jumar Fajardo. I don't know exactly what kind of adjustments San Miguel's going to have to make, but that's something that Jumar Fajardo and San Miguel's going to have to think about, because JP Adams, you give him that space, he's going to knock down those three-point shots.
All right, Ali, so right now, when looking at that matchup, there's just so much, again, to talk about there. A lot of things to really consider there, especially how Jumar Fajardo will have to play defense with all the big men showing different things for TNT. But we want to go off tangent here just a bit to also focus on the best player of the conference race, simply because, we're coming to a head with that. But since we're running out of time, Ali, just your quick thoughts on whether or not, just a real quick thought on whether or not Calvin Abueva should be the best player of the conference, given what he's done for this Magnolia team and the fact that he could be leading them to a finals appearance and potentially a championship.
I think so. I definitely think so. The Beast. I mean, not just this conference, but also you got to look at the last conference when he was plugged into Phoenix and how he fits so well. And it's like he never left.
Yeah.
And look, Phoenix. You look at where Phoenix ended up in this elimination round. All right, and you see where Calvin Abueva ends up. He ends up with Magnolia. It could have been something. It's a really good experience right now, but it could have been a bad experience because that was a bit of a gamble. But it worked out in Magnolia's favor, and he's fit in extremely well. And Calvin Abueva's averaging about 16.1 points per game, and he's doing it coming off the bench.
Definitely,
he's the difference maker.
Ali,
One
again.
of the reasons why I retired.
Ali, you know what? I want to have you on a podcast just so we can talk for hours, and I want to get you all riled up because that's the most fun version of Ali Peak there is.
You know what? This is not enough time for me.
No,
definitely.
No,
We're going to have you back.
This is not fair. This is not fair. If it wasn't for MOZZY,
Ali,
okay.
Ali, unfortunately, this is live TV, Ali. We got to work with this.
I know. Are we live? We're live.
Yeah,
We're live.
Okay, fine. We're live.
All right, Ali. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much for coming over. We're going to have you again sometime.
We need to have a whole segment for you. We're going to get out. Thank you again. You're awesome, Ali. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. See you again next time. And after the break, we'll discuss the Philippine team's performance as they enter the quarterfinals of the AFC 2021 Asian Women's Volleyball Championship. Stay tuned. You're watching the game. And welcome back to the game. The Choco Mucho Philippines and Rebisco Philippines are making strides in the AVC 2021 Asian Women's Volleyball Championship. The quarterfinals of the tournament started earlier today. And to help us discuss the plethora of volleyball action we've witnessed so far, we have our ever-reliable volleyball analyst, MOZZY Ravena. Tita MOZZY, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Tita MOZZY.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Kuya Ali.
Well, you know what? Ali had to give up his time for you.
Yes,
and
yes.
a lot of reason, and there's a good reason why. And we're going to talk a bit about volleyball now, and later on about Kiefer and THIRDY. But let's start off here first with Philippine volleyball. Obviously, quarterfinals were a while ago, and I want a measured response from Tita MOZZY. Kasi grabe, if you're on social media, ang daming sinasabi. So we want a little more, I guess, taking a step back, looking at the performance of our teams. I think the expectation was not necessarily na they're going to end up on a podium finish, especially with the short preparation time that we had. But what do you think these girls earned with the experience that they've had so far, Tita MOZZY?
Well, you know, actually, for me, the more important thing here is because we have a new foreign coach.
Yeah.
So this is like a view of the girls. It's some sort of parang siguro. It's also like seeing them and knowing them better. And also with Coach Oji Mamon. So it's assessing them and maybe doing the proper adjustments after. But at any rate, as you can see, we're just so happy that the youngsters are just, you know, you see a lot of future in volleyball. And also at the same time, it gives us a glimpse of what kind of team the coaches will form. And also, kasi ano yan it depends on, ako very big ako on the volleyball calendar. Because when you form a team, you should know that yung FIVB calendar, I'm sure they know that na, but it also should be in coordination with our own calendar, the AP, the PBL. So you know who and who are the available players and who can play for you. Like si Mao also, si Kalei Mao plays abroad, diba?
Yeah.
So this is very important. So I think at least now they get the general picture and more or less they can adjust when they come back.
Well, talking about the future, no, Tita MOZZY, and the young players that really caught your eye. For Choco Mucho, you mentioned Diana Wong, Kalei Mao, and Ria Meneses. So why did you think, or why did these players catch your eye in their matches?
Well, Dina Wong and Ria Meneses, parang they're still young players, but as you can see, they should be in the pool. To me, I think they have to keep these two girls in the pool kasi talagang potential and you know that with some training and some more siguro more exposure abroad that they can really be in the national team for a long time. And of course, Kalei Mao, syempre, di ba? You can see naman that she can lead this team and actually also be one of our best scorer in the team. So talaga kailangan din siya dun sa pool.
Well, of course, you mentioned all those names a while ago. And again, if you look at the results, not a lot of people will be happy with at least just looking at the numbers mismo. But then you look at the level of competition that these girls played against, talking specifically about this Choco Mucho team. What do you think they felt that they adjusted as Game 1 to Game 3 happened for them in terms of this tournament?
Well, I guess, there were a lot of factors, di ba, going into that tournament.
Yeah.
Medyo may setbacks. So, maybe yung like, for me, like as a fan and also a volleyball person inside the community or the circle for a long time, you just feel dissatisfied when you hear the line for experience.
Yeah.
Because you're anxious to go to the next level already. So we are all hoping that this squad or even after this squad, yung alam na nila no, kung sino talaga yung nasa pool, it will be a program that will be carried on for many years para ma-attain din natin yung goal natin.
Well, Tita Mozzy, now moving on to Rebisco. Again, you gave also 3 names. That's Nierva, Belen, and Manabat. All 3 of them got high praise for the way that they played and for Rebisco. What caught your eye the most when looking at them?
And yun nga, sabi ko, the future is bright for volleyball. Although nakakatakot rin because as I mentioned, these 3, and mukhang dalawa dito, NU kagad. So, talaga.
May biased opinion rin pala dito eh.
Oh, I was not expecting this, but I am here for it.
This is what we need in the show, Jota. Explain.
But di ba meron pang Laksina and you still have Cal? Oh my gosh. So, but kidding aside, yun yan, I think they really have a bright future and they are potential national team players. And even, I forgot kanina, Paat was also quite a revelation in this tournament. And I also mentioned Dindin Santiago because, Dindin, if you really know her from Dindin of before, very quiet player si Dindin. But in this tournament, you can see that she's really trying to lead the young squad. And parang leading by example. And medyo nakikita mo may emotions na involved. So that's a good sign for someone like Dindin.
Yeah, looking at Dindin specifically, seeing what she did in the PVL and now seeing that form carry over to the national team and her leadership trickle down to the younger ones, I'm sure that's something great for all the fans to see. But you look at the mixture, again, this team had, both teams had changes, right? Before the tournament started in terms of yung roster composition nila, and a lot of people said that maybe if things were originally the way they were set, results might have been different. But then you look at how this will help Philippine volleyball moving forward. Kasi we're talking about potential, we're talking about the growth of these athletes. How do you think this will help them in their future tournaments and how the national teams are organized moving forward?
Well, I go back to what I first said. It's about yung knowing each other, and not only for the players, and but also for the coaches. I think that's important also because we have a new foreign coach, and I'm sure even though madami na siyang nakitang videos of the players, but it's different when you're in an actual tournament. And again, assess and adjust accordingly. I think that's the most important takeaway from this tournament.
And isn't it so nice to see social media alight again with volleyball? Kasi grabe! It felt like there was a little break because of the PVL. Oo, and iba talaga.
It's just different.
It is so different. And but to see Jet, Jet was like thinking, what's happening here when looking on social media? But it's all amazing. But Tita Mozzy, so right now they're winding down their tournament. We're seeing a lot more from players that we haven't seen in the spotlight this much. What is your impression on the younger players that we brought out there, trying to face up against competition that they would have never faced here in the Philippines, and facing the bright lights really for the first time in their careers?
Well, again, it's really a good exposure to them because, having a game with Plumjit and then the Nutsaray, I mean, like, siguro starstruck ka in the sa mga games mo, but definitely a lot of takeaways. And again, learning from them, but we really hope we go to the next level next time. And I'm sure yung mga coaches natin, the composition kasi of the coaches in our national team now are respected big time mga national players. So I think si Grace Antigua's there, si Mama Grace, then si Tina Sala, I think. So okay yung kumbaga the group that will choose whoever could be in that siguro permanent national pool that we will have.
Absolutely. It just feels like a preview of what could be and the talent that we could all bring in together. Tita Mozzy, we're not done with you yet because when we return, we have a lot more to talk about. We're keeping MOZZY Ravena in the hot seat this time. Actually, it will become really hot in just a few moments. This time to talk about the epic showdowns between Kiefer and THIRDY Ravena in the Japanese B League. Stay tuned. You're watching the game. Welcome back. You're watching the game. I'm Paulo Del Rosario. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, well, figurative rock, several of the country's most popular hoopers have begun their campaigns in the Japan B League overseas. And after years of waiting, we finally witnessed one of the most anticipated showdowns for Pinoy basketball fans, the Battle of the Ravenas, Kiefer versus THIRDY. Manong Keith drew first blood in their opening matchup last Saturday to lead the Shiga Lake Stars to a 22-point comeback victory over San Neo Phoenix. Check out the stat line between the brothers, and if you thought that was a crazy finish, check out their rematch. This time it was THIRDY who got the better of his older brother, leading an 18-point comeback with both Ravenas dropping at least 20 points in the overtime thriller. Woo! My goodness, grabe, like it's the same stat line. Just looking at it, it's the same points scored. Well, still joining us is the #1 witness and the source for the sibling rivalry.
Yung may kasalanan
Oo nga,
nito.
may kasalanan na to. The one and only commander of the Ravena household, Tita Mozzy Ravena. All right, Tita Mozzy, before we begin, grabe, how proud were you seeing the both of them go at each other in Japan, in a foreign league, in a high-level league, and really making everyone proud here at home?
Actually, just like you, it's parang surreal to me eh. I mean, like, may sound, pero kahit ako hindi ako makapaniwala that it is actually happening. So, I was just so proud of the two boys, and siguro moms are wired differently eh. So, syempre, una yung parang nagpa-pray ako, when you pray, no injuries, and syempre yung they just play their games and enjoy the game. I think yun naman yung nangyari. And with that, we also enjoyed the games. So I think perfect for me.
Perfect talaga. Pati
This
sa
is
amin.
a perfect weekend for me.
That's great to hear, Tita Mozzy. Pero real talk, sa atin dalawa na lang. Or sa atin lang. Kasi yung stats ni Kiefer and ni THIRDY, halos magkaparehas. And sometimes it's hard to believe. Ano ba to? Nag-usap ba itong dalawa na to na matching stat line? Para...
They were guarding each other. Oh.
Tapos 1-1, tapos yung stats nilang game 1 and game 2 halos parehas. Nag-usap pa yung dalawa?
Oo nga, di ba sabi nga ni Boom, parang scripted eh. Kahit ako parang okay, but to me, syempre, that's a welcome treat. So, nobody got one over the other. Parang sobrang equal. It's a tie. So,
Walang nagagalit.
So, on a mom's point of view, okay, good. That's good. Pero, again, ang galing lang din talaga. Just like you, amazed din ako.
Sabi ni Kiefer after the game that it took us back to our days growing up in our backyard, going at each other. Pero grabe, I don't know if the battles were anything like what we saw in Japan. Could you give us a glimpse of how those battles were in your household, in the backyard? How were the battles between Kiefer and THIRDY?
Well, as they would say, di ba, happiness is annoying your brother. Di ba?
I can agree with that.
Diba? And even during the game, nung nag-free throw si THIRDY na medyo crucial, I was telling yung mga nanunood dito, I was telling them, oh, I'm sure may sinasabi si Kiefer. I'm sure bitin na trash talk niya. Hindi yun masushoot kasi hindi nga na-shoot yung isang. So, I know them best. So, but at any rate, I mean, I'm just so happy that they push each other, that they're that competitive, but of course not forgetting that they're brothers at the end of the day.
Well, talking about Boom, no, he shared something on Instagram saying, kaaliw, ano yun? Kaaliw lang for mama. Pero, pero kamusta naman ang other side ng may kasalanan nito? Si Coach Bong. Kamusta naman siya na watching your Kiefer and THIRDY?
Si Bong yung parang, noong una, worried kami. Will you be able to watch the game? Ganon. Kasi syempre, they have their own game. Pero he was able to watch it and pero yun pala, it will turn out na mas nakakakaba pa yung game nila, mas parang nagka-heart attack ako dun sa talk and text game against me.
You know,
As a wife, iba naman yon. That's different. Siyempre doon may bonus involved eh. So that's
Real talk.
That is true. And syempre, you know, actually I have to congratulate Coach Bong for watching that because their game actually ended maybe 10-20 minutes before their game started, talking about TNT's game. And you look at the way that they've competed, you talk a bit about the trash talking that has happened. And this is something you mentioned kanina that you actually encourage this type of competition. Could you tell us a bit about how they grew up to respect each other in terms of competing against each other, and you know it doesn't get too far. It could happen especially when they're brothers.
Well, siguro the best thing to do is to invite both of you here in our house. Kahit one dinner lang, and you'll find out that.
Basta may pagkain.
That's one. Tapos number two, dapat tough ka talaga kasi you won't survive. So that's just how competitive everyone is. Like, it's part of your daily life. So parang it's nothing to you. It's innate. But again, syempre they grew up with with our guidance. Na syempre you just have a level of competition, diba? Pero after that, syempre when you go back or when you finish the game, you're still brothers.
Of course,
we're still family.
Of course, Tita. But before we let you go, let's play a little game. Just, you know, para lang end tayo na high note. We're gonna play fast talk, no? With the Ravena Brothers edition. So all you got to say is Kiefer or THIRDY.
Okay.
But if you want to explain, okay lang. Sige.
All right.
Okay, let's start.
All right.
On the spot.
No pressure. This is
No
just going to
pressure.
on the internet.
Okay. Sino ang mas iyakin pag natatalo? Who?
THIRDY.
THIRDY.
Okay.
Next.
So buti na lang 1-1. Okay.
Sino ang mas malakas magpa-blowout pagkatapos manalo?
Kiefer.
Okay.
At
Yeah, I
least.
see that.
Kuyang-kuya.
I see that.
After the last game, sino ang unang tumawag sa parents?
Ako yung unang tumawag sa
That also
Mother,
makes sense.
yeah. Tay yun. And last but not the least, Tita, who will win their next showdown against each other? Kiefer or THIRDY?
January 22 pa yun, ang tagal. Pwede ba muna ako.
Sige. Pagbigyan ng tita. Na-stress na siya. Anyway,
One ulit.
yeah, thank you, Tita Mozzy, for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tita.
And thank you for joining us. I'm Jet Manuel.
Catch us weeknights here on One News, One Sports, and One Sports Plus. I'm Paulo Del Rosario, and this has been The Game.